Let's be honest, many of us will never finish painting every single army we start, and yet for years, I let that hold me back. I told myself I couldn't play until every model was finished, every gun was right, every base was textured. But that pressure, it nearly stopped me gaming altogether. So today, I want to share the unpainted truth about wargaming, why playing matters more than perfection, and how letting go of the pressure might be the best thing for you to do for your hobby. In tabletop wargaming, there's a quiet pressure that creeps in, a pressure to have everything perfect before you ever roll a single die. A fully painted army, the right miniatures with the right guns, the right flags, the right uniforms, the right decals. And if you listen too closely to that pressure, you might miss the whole point of why we started playing in the first place. It's easy to think you need everything perfect before you start, especially if you're new to the hobby and you've looked at the amazing photos and movies some really talented model makers have shared on social media. But the truth is, some of the best games happen long before every miniature is painted or every weapon is just right. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing armies fully painted. I love the sight of a battlefield where every squad, every vehicle, every banner is finished and gleaming with character. It's an incredible sight. When you pull it off, well, it feels amazing. But here's the thing, it takes time. Time we don't often have. And if you spend all your time chasing perfection before you ever set foot on the battlefield, you'll miss countless games, countless stories, countless memories you could have made. And I know, because I've done it. I've missed plenty of battles because I was still working on my army. So what's the solution? What do you actually need to do to start playing? Well, as a minimum, just build the figures. Get them based and stood up on your terrain, unpainted. That alone gives you so much. You can see them in context. Do they work with the table? Do they clash with the setting? Do you actually need different terrain to make these figures and these rules feel right? Treat it as a test, especially if you're playing at home or in an informal club setting. You're not on display. You're just telling a story and having fun. So if you can build the models, why not undercoat them? Because you know you're going to face challenges finding the time to paint them. Don't use black or white. Maybe spray them a base color that matches the army's theme. That way, later on, you can use some quick and easy techniques like dry brushing and washes to add some texture. But they're already close to the right color. My fighting tigers, for example, get hit with an orange undercoat, and I can't buy a spray can, so I airbrush them orange. And from there, I add the details when I can. Once you have enough of them on the table, the inconsistencies vanish. At least 5 or 6 of my Terminators weren't fully painted in one of our live streams, but that didn't affect the game. No one cared. We were in the moment. None of the players picked me out for having partly painted figures. And if you've undercoated them, throw some colour on the bases, and that alone gets you surprisingly close to good enough. And when you see a regiment of them together, rather than looking at individual figures, you realise it doesn't have to be so much work to be table ready. This regiment has got a sprayed on base coat and coloured bases. And by choosing this kind of neutral green tone rather than black or white, they already look close enough to finished. It's taken me longer to wait for the paint to dry than actually spray them. But here's a sister unit with a bit more detail, so you can see what I mean about adding those details later. Here's another example. These vehicles have got their orange base coat and a few details in black. This one even has its tracks missing, but they are plenty good enough to start playing with, and I will add markings, weathering, and finish them off properly when I get time. Now, by my own standards, I'm just about an okay miniature painter for rank and file troops, but I know I'm not cut out for those finely detailed characters and heroes. So now I don't get hung up on making every figure perfect. Focus what time you have on what brings you the most joy. I'm much better and quicker at making and painting terrain, but I don't let that stop me from building new armies. Because as satisfying as it is to see a fully painted force, I treasure the time I spend around the table with my friends, playing a game. That's what I'm here for. Shared time, shared stories. I've spent years procrastinating, waiting to match terrain to new troops, fussing over paint schemes, wondering if the bases were right. And on my epic forces, they're not, by the way. Most of them don't match anything now. But I'm finally championing just getting the games going again. Even whole campaigns, using what I have, not what the rulebook says I need. And maybe my figures aren't perfect, but you know what? That's okay. So one thing I did get right from the very start of my wargaming was not worrying too much about what miniatures made up my army. If it looked close enough, it worked. Trying to chase the exact unit with the exact weapon loadout every single time is a fast track to frustration, and worse, to an expensive hobby that locks you out of playing. This hobby can be costly enough without falling into that trap. Reusing miniatures, repurposing models, proxying units, that's part of the magic. It's creative, it's smart, it's survival. Let the troop roster decide what's what. Write it down. Tell your opponent what's what, and then get on with the game. Let's be frank. When figure lines change and new codices insist you need a whole new army or a whole new system of base sizes and shapes, that's not about the purity of the rule set. That's marketing. It's about selling you something you didn't need last month. It's about making armies obsolete, not because the story demands it, but because a new product line does. And that is fine if you want to buy in. There's nothing wrong with new models. I know how exciting it is to buy a new army from scratch and start building it. But take the suggestions of the rule makers with a healthy pinch of salt. This hobby belongs to you, not them. Let's not forget, if you're watching this channel, it's a good chance your games are science fiction or fantasy. They're imaginary wars in imaginary pasts or futures, fought by armies who often make up the rules as they go. So, if my Space Marines carry bolters that don't match the latest sculpts exactly, does it really matter? If my squats are represented by old rogue trader dwarves with las guns instead of plasma rifles, does it break the immersion? Of course not. The immersion comes from the story we create on the table, not the fine print on a data sheet or a rule set. I prefer when my troops have the right guns and uniforms. I prefer when my tanks have the correct pennants and markings. But if they don't, if we're mid-campaign or especially if I'm trying something new, I'm going to play anyway, and I'm going to enjoy it, because I'd rather play with imagination than wait forever for perfection. The beauty of wargaming isn't in whether every lasgun is the right pattern. It's in the stories we tell, the worlds we build, and the memories we create with friends. It's in the moments when a scratch-built tank holds the line, when a 3D printed army captures the hive city against all odds, when a mismatched, half-painted squad fights a desperate last stand and becomes a legend. None of that requires perfection. It requires imagination, enthusiasm, and a willingness to throw the dice and see what happens. So, if you're waiting until everything's painted, until every miniature is perfect, until every figure matches that latest release, please stop waiting. The table is ready, your story is ready, play the game. Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe gaming is about imagination first. I'd love to hear about your greatest game played with imperfect forces. With that, I'll see you on the battlefield.